In this short tutorial, I want to show you how to change your navigation banner when a user scrolls. So majorly when you check almost on the website or some websites, you'll see that when the user scroll, the color here will change, and maybe slightly some of the navigation colors as well will change. That's basically what we'll be doing in the next few minutes. For us to dive into it, let me show you what the instructions look like. Alright, so this is a GitHub repo which I created. The link to the GitHub repo will be in the video description, so you can look it up and either clone or copy the necessary information that you need. First, we will change the background color of our navbar whenever the user scrolls. So what functions you will find inside this very project is a scroll window function, then a scrollNav function. Then inside the function, we're going to declare an if statement that if the user scroll 100 pixels, then something should happen. We will also run a loop on the links so that whenever the background changes, we can actually change that as well. I already have this clone in my local environment, so we'll just dive into it and create it step by step. Right, so as you can see it as it is, there's nothing happening. And if you look at this asset folder, this is more like a finished project, so you can look it up and just check what to do. Copy any of the source code, you can get them in the asset folder. Then on the JS, you will see the scripts which you can use. Yeah, so these are all the scripts that we're going to be writing. Then if you check also under the asset folder in the CSS, you also see a CSS file that you can copy from. So quickly, I'm going to be using Atom to add all of these things so that we can see the functionalities and how it works. So quickly, let's just try to add the necessary file so that whenever we scroll our browser, then we'll be able to see the change of colors. First, we need to come to our asset folder, then add our script. Okay, so under the JS, we're just going to create a new file. Just create a new file. Then we're going to title our new file scrollNav.js. Okay, so here we have our scrollNav. So I will just quickly go to our GitHub page to copy the source code that we have under the JS. Then I'm just going to copy all of this. Then I'll paste it. I'm going to explain what each of these lines does in a few minutes. Right, so the next thing is we need to add our CSS. So also we will go to our asset folder, then copy the CSS, also scrollNav.css. Okay, now we just need to create a new file. So we're just going to say scrollNav.css, then we're going to paste our CSS. Okay, so now that we have the two files added, so let me walk you through what they do. For the JavaScript, what we are doing with the first line, which is on line number 5, is we are storing the browser events when the browser scroll, when there's a movement. So this is the function that actually tracks that for us. So we are saying window.scroll, then we call the scrollNav function, which is this one. So this is the function that actually carry out almost all the logic we want to happen whenever the user scroll. Okay, so to make our code cleaner, we targeted the nav, which I'm going to show you right away. So in the CSS, we have an ID of Navbar. So make sure that you have this ID added to your HTML file. and you can see the file structure of this one. Then if you come back to the JS file, you will also see that we targeted all the link elements, which we use the create selector all. So if you look at it, we targeted from the ID, then we select all the A inside the ID. All right, so then we use the if statement. We say if document element dot scroll top. So this is basically saying whenever the user scroll up to 100 pixel, okay, we want some things to happen, and that's what our element here is doing. So if you look at it, we say the navbar, right, add a class to the navbar. So we're saying here, whenever there's a scroll of 100 pixel, add a class to the navbar. So this PA fix header class will be added whenever there's a scroll. Okay, then so let's look at the class which we added here. So you can see the CSS file is just the class, and the other one is just to change the color of the text to black. Okay, so let's just go back to our JavaScript to see. So now another thing that we have is the for loop here. Basically what this for loop is doing is actually looping through all the lists, all the A tag, and what it's doing is adding a class of text black, which is this very class that we have. And if you look at, so whenever there's a scroll, this if statement will run. Let's run our program and see what happens. Okay, so we're just going to refresh. Okay, nothing is happening yet, and I will tell you why. We only added all this. HTML is not aware that something like that exists in our source code. So first we need to link our CSS. So we're just going to say asset, then we want CSS, then we want the scrollNavbar.css. Okay, so the next thing is we need to add our JavaScript. So I'm just going to duplicate this one to the bottom. So we're just going to say that scroll_nav.js, right? So now HTML is aware that we have those two files. So let's try to load it and see what happens. Okay, and nothing happens. So let's just inspect our code to see what's going on. So I think the issue will be this, because when you're working in your local environment, most especially when you're not using a server side to serve your site, if you have a slash before a file, it might not work. So let's check this out. All right, and here we are. So you can see that whenever our program runs, it changes color. Okay, so let's try to comment out the else statement and let's see what happens. So if we don't have the else, okay, if you don't have the else, you will see that when the user scroll back, it doesn't restore to the default. So basically what the else help us to achieve is to restore our code back to its initial state. So if you look at it very well, we call on the remove class. So remove the class that we added on line 13. Then we run the for loop to remove all the class that we added on line 18. And that's basically what it is. So if you look at it very well, now if we refresh, you see that our program runs, and whenever we scroll, the color changes both the text, and when you scroll back, it works. Okay, and let's try to check our mobile view. if it behaves the same way. Okay, you can see even on the mobile view it works similarly. And that will be all. If you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can be notified every time we release a new update. Until next time, see you in the next one.